Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18 Tarot and Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. I am here with a VR to Chanel over at Chanel Days and her tag end of year tarot tag for 2024. I have been enjoying seeing other folks VR to this, and I have been planning to do so myself, and I'm getting in just in the second last day of the year. I will link Chanel's original video in the description box below and tag her as well. Do check out the tag because there's lots of great VRs to it already. I will also timestamp below the prompts and you can skip ahead if you like. I will mention that for this VR, like Chanel, I am not just going to focus on decks that I obtained or purchased in 2024 or that came out in 2024. This is going collection wide, but with respect to my practice in 2024. And since it's the end of year tarot tag, I am sticking completely to tarot decks and not oracle decks, with the exception of one prompt that will be fairly obvious as to why I did that. So the first prompt is the deck you used the most this year. And I have mentioned in the end of year reflections tag, I didn't track this year. I have kept track of which decks I've used for each month. So for each month I have a list of decks of all the decks I used, but not how many times I used each. I'm totally going to track this in 2025, and I have chosen a spot in my planner to do that. So for this I'm kind of guessing. And one of the decks, tarot decks, that I think would be a contender for a deck used most this year would be the Forest Lore Tarot. This is a deck that I got very early in the year, and it was a somewhat spontaneous purchase. You can see this is the first edition, the only edition that I know of. I don't know of any plans to reprint it, by Valeda Oracle. This came onto my radar via my friend Tegan over at Cosmic Creeper, and I effectively was alerted that this would be going out of print. And this has animals that are familiar to the UK, I think, is the area of focus, but a lot of them are common to where I live in North America as well. The major arcana are trees, and one of the things that drew me to this deck when I started to look at it was that the way that the trees have been paired with the major arcana makes very clear that Ogham were taken into account. And, you know, I created an Ogham deck. Ogham is a system that I really enjoy. So that drew me to it. It felt like a really well thought out deck. It's not my usual aesthetic at all, but something about this called to me, and so I, took a chance and ordered it, knowing that, once they were gone, effectively. The creator had said, once they're done, they're done. And so there was a little bit of FOMO involved in my purchase of this deck. But I have to say, I am so glad that I got this, because I have been obsessed with this deck. You see, in the Ogham, the oak tree Dar is associated with strength as well, so that's perfect. I have been obsessed with this deck, and when I got it, I used it nonstop, and then I put it back on the shelf for a while and pretty much immediately got it back out again. I think this is just a great springtime, early summertime deck. It is one that I have really, really enjoyed this year, and I'm looking forward to using in the springtime 2025 as well. So the Forest Lore Tarot is definitely, I think, a solid contender for deck used most this year in terms of tarot, with the caveat that I didn't actually keep count. I promise that when Chanel puts this tag out next year, I will be more prepared and have an accurate answer. The next prompt is deck you didn't use at all or barely used this year. And there are a handful of decks I could have put here, but one that I really didn't use that I want to figure out how to use and how to get along with is the Hollow Valley Tarot. I've had this deck for a while. It is by Aaron Elise and Davis Carr. This was a Kickstarter deck. And there's a lot that I like about this, but I really haven't used it a ton, including this year. It's a Pipish Pip deck, and it has a lot of symbolism in it. My challenge with this deck is that the guidebook doesn't do what I wish it did, which is really explain all of the very particular choices in terms of items depicted. But I'm not going to rehome it. I'm not ready to rehome it. This deck has strong astrological elements in it. You can see, maybe you can see, the glyphs here. And now that I'm studying astrology more intensively, I wonder if that's my way in for this deck. But it's just one that I have not really used this year. And I think it's really pretty. I like the curvy figures in the deck. I like that it's nature-based. I really like kind of the vibe of it. I haven't quite figured out how this deck works for me. And I think that it could. So, this is a 2025 project, figuring out this deck, the Hollow Valley Tarot. The next prompt is most recent addition. And the most recent addition, in terms of something that I actually received, I do have a couple of things in the mail, one of which is stuck and has been stuck due to the Canada Post strike for quite some time. That was a Kickstarter, but the most recent deck that I actually got into my possession is the Sufi Tarot by Aida Hussein. And this deck I bought at a store in a couple of, I don't know, like maybe an hour north of where I live. It's this great shop on the side of a highway that I found some wonderful finds, and it was there. And this is a deck that my friend Sonia had recommended. And Sonia is a friend who has consistently been a very good recommender of things in my experience, in terms of books and things like that. And this is a deck that she was really enjoying. And, Sufi practice is not something that I know a ton about. It wasn't a deck that was really on my radar. This is a mass market deck. And so I put it on the wish list, knowing that the recommendation was probably good. And then when I saw it in the shop, I picked it up very affordably. And this deck is just fantastic. I really love the bright colors in this deck. I really like, there's a few YouTube videos of the creator of this deck kind of talking through the deck and explaining inspirations and things like this, and I've really enjoyed those. This deck feels very much like a self-love kind of deck. It feels like a very gentle deck. It's really good, and it has a good little guidebook that's quite substantial. And the guidebook has some endnotes and a bibliography, which I love. And since buying this, I actually have gotten as a gift that I asked for a holiday gift, the illuminated Rumi. So I'm going to read some Rumi with this deck in 2025, because I would like to know more about that context and that inspiration for the Sufi Tarot. It very much reads like a Smith-Waite. It is quite close to the Smith-Waite system, but it is just a really beautiful, colorful deck. And the guidebook is very supportive without feeling overly sweet, if that makes sense. Like, it feels supportive without feeling nice washed kind of thing. And I really like that about it. So this has become a real self-care deck for me, the Sufi Tarot, and it's the most recent deck I got that I picked up back in September. Haven't bought a deck for a while. The next prompt is deck that isn't your usual style. And watching this video, you'll know that my usual style is a little bit all over the place. I'm not somebody who has a type for a host of reasons. So my tastes are all over the place, but a deck that I would say isn't my usual style that I really enjoy is Le Tarot de Paysage Intérieur. This is a tarot of interior landscapes. It's a French deck. I found this on Etsy. Some other tarot tubers had it before me. This is a really interesting one, and it's one that is wintry to me. It's very different than anything else in my collection. It's quite abstract, though you do get some level of pictorial representation, like these, the Pentacles cards all have the big yellow round coin in them, for example. Le Soleil, the sun, has, you can see kind of the outline of a sun in the sky there, but it's quite abstract, and I would say moody. It's a moody deck. I like to only draw a few of these at a time. Like 3 is an absolute maximum for me with a deck like this, and just kind of get lost in the image and see where my eye goes. It's a very cool deck, and it does not come with any kind of guidebook. It is a entirely intuitive. I think the card actually says, yeah, it's kind of let your impressions speak to you. It's very much intended to be read that way. So that is a deck that is not my usual style, but it is one that I quite enjoy, and I'm really glad that I have in my collection. My cloth keeps moving. Okay. The next prompt is favorite deck pairing. This is another spot where I could have picked a few different things. I actually just found a deck pairing that I really like, but it's up on my desk because I'm using those decks together right now, and that is the Nomad Tarot with the Endless Oracle and Wisdom of the Kaliach Oracle. Somehow those 3 work really well together in ways that I did not entirely expect. But this pairing is one that I've used quite a bit since I got this Oracle deck. How good is this? I've already showed this in another video. This is the Star Trek Tarot by Telekiad. And this is Oracle of Simple Space by Tishan over at Satu Bloom here on TarotTube. And these two are just perfect. I really like both of these decks on their own. I think they're both really well done, really well thought out. I really like the pairing of the Star Trek episodes with the tarot cards in this deck. The keywords are subtle enough to ignore but make sense. They have a cool kind of system of association glyphs there. And, I just think it's a really well done deck, and I cannot wait for them to do more of the Star Trek shows with tarot decks, because they're totally going to do that. And I really like the Oracle of Simple Space keywords. I like how the Zodiac have a phrase, like for Libra it's I balance. And I like that this is not an astrology deck. It has astrological components to it. It also has astronomical components to it, and of course the relationship between those things is long and, intertwined and complex. But it also has components of kind of humans' interaction with space in it, which goes well with this Star Trek deck. This is, without a doubt, my favorite. I love this episode of Star Trek. I love the episode with the Gorn arena. This is one of my absolute favorites. These just make me happy. And this is kind of, you know, it's not seasonally specific. It's not something that, you know, is bound to a particular time. It feels timeless to me. I love the Oracle of Simple Space with the Star Trek Tarot. That is the best pairing that I have found all year. Next prompt is favorite deck mod, bag, or accessory bought or made. I have not modified a single deck this year. I'm not much of a deck modder, really. I don't have the steadiest hands, so mostly deck modifying freaks me out. I haven't been making accessories so much, and I haven't really bought a ton of accessories either. I will just say I really like these cloths, which is by Peggy Papez, who I'm sure everyone in TarotTube community knows Peggy, or knows of Peggy and her Etsy shop. But I really like these cloths that, you know, they're well made. I have a few of them. I would like a few more. They're my favorite. I also love these wrap style bags by Ginkgo and the Crone on Etsy. They are a really good storage solution for decks. I've got a few of those. Yeah, I don't have a ton in the way of accessories to share. Next up is favorite deck backs, and my favorite deck backs in my collection are the Land Back Tarot. I've shown this tons of times for the favorite deck backs prompt. It has never changed. It has a birch bark back. And, you know, it's simple, it's effective, it's not quite reversible, but it's reversible enough if you wanted to do that. It looks fabulous on my table. I just love these backs. And yeah, I like it. I like a deck back that is simple for the most part. You know, it's thoughtful, but it's not overpowering. And I think that this is just really beautiful. I think birch bark is beautiful. You know, birch in the Ogam has to do with beginnings. Birch grow at the edge of a forest, so I love that. Land Back Tarot. Next up is deck with a great theme. I feel like actually a lot of the decks that I have shown so far in this prompt have themes. You know, the Forest Lore has a theme, Sufi Tarot has a uniting theme, the Star Trek deck, Oracle of Simple Space. Like these all actually are decks that one could call themed. But I'm going to say a deck whose theme I love, that I hope to explore a little bit again in 2025, and maybe some of you will if you're interested, is Terror of the Cat People. Because what is more great than a science fictional world of humans and cats with a huge amount of world building behind it? Like, I just think that this is so cool. And a deck with an entire fantasy world built in, unique to that deck, that's gotta be the great theme choice for me. And I mentioned wanting to spend some more time with this. There are some novels by very famous, very accomplished author Andre Norton that are related to this world. And in 2025, I would like to read into this world. There's a pair of novels called Mark of the Cat and Year of the Rat, I think they're called. And they come together in one, the two books are published together in one. And I got that on my e-reader. And I haven't gotten to it yet. So I think 2025, I want to delve into this theme of this world of the cat people, because how cool is that? feel like, of course, as a particular sort of nerd that I am, that would be the theme that would appeal to me. Deck you are in love with. Again, this is a spot where I could pick lots of things. I am not monogamous, as we know. So, deck you are in love with. Great Lakes Tarot. I have been on a deep dive experience with the Great Lakes Tarot that I have some intention of sharing with you all, but I haven't thus far. I made my own guidebook. So this is, you know, as the title of the deck suggests, it's Great Lakes based. It has particular locations in the Great Lakes region. It has plants, animals, scenes that are very familiar to me because I have lived in the Great Lakes region for pretty much my entire life, aside from the odd few months here, few months there. I grew up on the shores of Lake Huron, you know, very close to the water. Not in like a waterfront property or anything, but the lake was a big part of my growing up. And I don't live right on a Great Lake right now, but I certainly live in the area, in the Kawartha Lakes region. And so this is home to me. This is such a special deck, and I am in love with this deck. And this deck was a gift from my friend, this deck, I wasn't really aware of it, and I'm so grateful because this deck is really, really special. And folks know I'm a druid, and in the context of druidry, getting to know your natural environment is really important. And a lot of our druid practices have to do with observing and building relationship with all of our neighbors, our plant neighbors and animal neighbors, and this deck is just a really special part of that for me now. And I'm in love with this deck. So that is the Great Lakes Tarot. The next prompt is deck you wished existed or out of print deck that you want. So I will share both. There's not a huge list of out of print decks that I really want, but I really, really hope that someday the Delta Enduring Tarot comes back in print. It is just a really beautiful, well done deck that I would love to have in my collection someday. Won't happen unless it comes back in print, so I'm really hopeful that Delta Enduring comes back. I also would love to see a kind of anniversary reprinting of the Collective Tarot. I feel like the Collective Tarot is a really cool part of queer tarot history that I would love to have in my collection again. I mean, it's not something that I anticipate happening unless there's a reprint. So those are the two, Delta Enduring and Collective Tarot, that I would really love to see come back from being out of print. I think that there's an audience for them. I think that people would be interested in them. Creators, if you're listening, you know, it would be amazing to see those decks back. In terms of a deck I wish existed, now, I am hesitant to say that I would want a pop culture deck as a deck that I wish existed, but it's a thing that comes to mind. I would love a really, really good Xena Warrior Princess deck. Except it has to have good pips. It can't be lazy pips, like lots of those pop culture decks have. No lazy pips. And also it has to be super queer, as Xena Warrior Princess was. I rewatched not too long ago, a couple years ago, and I was happy to see that it held up in that way as I remembered it. I would love a really good, really queer Xena Warrior Princess deck. That would be fantastic. The next prompt, which card sums up this year as a whole, or a card you like? Now, a card that sums up this year as a whole. I came up with the Seven of Pentacles and the Nine of Wands. Not these depictions from Tarot of the Cat People specifically necessarily, but these two cards I feel like sum up a lot of what my 2024 has been about, some of which has been quite challenging at times. The Nine of Wands for me definitely speaks to a kind of on the precipice of burnout kind of a situation. And so there's been some of that. With the Seven of Pentacles, it's also been a year for me with a lot of kind of assessment and evaluation in good ways, in terms of taking up my word of the year, which for 2024 is intentionality, and really striving to be very deliberate in what I'm doing, in terms of everything from kind of my druid practice or my tarot practice or my tarot collection or my purchasing decisions or my work, my areas of study, all of these things. I feel like 2024 I've done a lot of kind of examining the effects of different things, on me and otherwise, and some figuring out in terms of what works and what doesn't, what supports me and what doesn't. I think for 2024 I went pretty overboard initially on things like New Year's resolutions and goals and things, and through the course of the year really have felt with this examination kind of attitude of the Seven of Pentacles a desire to kind of pare down and simplify. And I end the year not feeling the best, I'll say, and I'm not going to get into that too much here. I've shared that I'm dealing with some things right now, but also like I've gotten out of my own way in some ways. I've gotten some things out of my way. I've narrowed my focus in ways that I feel good about, and that's a Seven of Pentacles kind of component that I feel good about for 2024. The next prompt is tarot practice reflection. I feel like 2024 in some ways, has been a really monumental one for me as a tarot reader. I got to go to Reader Studio, which was not expected, and is a thing that was quite impulsive and came together really quickly, but really just made my year. I got to meet TarotTube folks there. I got to meet tarot folks there, tarot authors who I've admired for a long time there, and deck creators, and being in the room, with so many people who share an enthusiasm for something that is so important to me. It's just an experience that I will cherish for the rest of my life. I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to go. I feel like I learned a ton, and like it just kickstarted. Not kickstarted because it wasn't new. I feel like it just gave my practice and my tarot study and my interest like a good jolt in a good way. Like I came back from that just feeling invigorated in my practice, and that has really carried forward. So that was a really great part of 2024. In 2024, I maintained reading cards for myself on the moon phases, as well as daily draws, which are some combination of tarot or oracle or some, sometimes it's dice or Ogham or something else, but a reading of some sort throughout the entire year. And I've really oscillated, in terms of how much I want and how well I do, quote unquote. Trying to unlearn that with the level of regularity that I attained this year in terms of daily practice, in terms of moon cycle practice. And I feel like I'm finally finding and really in the right balance between kind of flexibility and regularity, both of which I value in my practice. Things are feeling really integrated in ways that feel really good. I feel like I haven't looked at, this is a time of year I feel like where a lot of folks are sharing things about kind of what decks they received this year and this kind of thing. I feel like I'm really happy with my tarot and oracle collection right now. I feel like compared to 3-4 years ago, at this point, I'm much better at telling, what I think is aesthetically pleasing and beautiful versus what I'll actually use. And that has kind of naturally meant bringing, somewhat fewer things in, rehoming a little bit more. I feel like definitely not quite, but I feel like this year it's almost like a break even in terms of rehoming and acquiring new decks, which is interesting. I feel good about that, and I feel like right now I'm ending the year really keen on doing some deep dive exploring in 2025. So, I feel good about my tarot practice this year. I've gotten a couple of opportunities to read for other people this year, which is not a thing I do a ton of, but I've gotten to do that in ways that were really enjoyable. I want to do that more. 2024 has solidified that I do want to read tarot for other people more. That's a cool thing to know. I'm happy. I really love and cherish my divinatory practice, and it feels very, integrated with the rest of my life right now in ways that it hasn't always, and that's a good feeling. Now, the last prompt is pull a card for the new year, or show a deck that you want to use next year. So I will show a deck that I want to use next year. This is a deck that my experience at Reader's Studio ultimately led me to pick up. And I picked it up fairly late this year, and I haven't really worked with it yet. But it's one of those deep dive plans for 2025. And that is the Herb Crafter's Tarot with artwork by Joanna Powell Colbert and writing by Letitia Guthrie. Folks will all be familiar with this deck. It's a mass market deck that has been out for quite some time at this point. But we had a special experience at Reader's Studio with a meditation related to the Dandelion Fool. And then an experience with a butterfly and dandelions outside that was such a highlight of my year, actually. This Dandelion Fool meditation that we were led through in the quiet room at Reader's Studio on one of the days. I don't remember which day it was. I would have it written down somewhere. And, this whole kind of experience was inspired by this particular card in this particular deck. And we were given a spread that relates to the Dandelion Fool. And this is a deck that I have long admired artistically. I have the Gaian Tarot by Joanna Powell Colbert, and I really like that deck. My herbalism knowledge is lacking. So it's one that I also find a little bit maybe intimidating, or wondered if it's one that I would necessarily get along with or be able to read very well. But now that I have it, I'm really excited to explore this deck. It is just beautiful. And I think that I will actually find it more comfortable to read with than I maybe feared. It's a deck that now just, even though I've barely worked with it because of that experience, feels really, really special. And so I'm really, really excited about the Herb Crafter's Tarot. So that is a deck that I want to use in 2025. Thank you to Chanel of Chanel Days for starting the end of year tarot tag. Thank you to you for watching. I wish you the happiest of New Year, and I will see you again soon.